I wanna give a little bit of a spiel about like what is mathematics, yeah? This is not something that I've always known and I've just decided to tell you, okay? This is something I've kind of have a little bit more of an idea about recently, at least how to express it, yeah? So it's something that you can't really, I don't think you can really answer right away, yeah? But I think the appeal of it is obvious right away. So there's some sort of idea of like absolute truth, right? That's appealing, yeah? People like absolute truth, people like patterns, you know? And I guess sort of people just tend to like concrete things, okay?
Yeah.
Right? So I think this is maybe what mathematics would have been like a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So this draws you, and it's kind of true, right? Patterns, absolute truth, concrete things, yeah? And it sort of has to do with the objects of mathematics, yeah? The things that we study, we talk about the objects. We really care about the knowledge, yeah? The facts,
Mm-hmm.
yeah? So I guess this is maybe the 0th level of mathematics, yeah?
Yeah.
And and it's not that they're not there, right? It's just that it's I think it's a different focus, okay? So this would have been the be all and end all of mathematics ages ago. But I think now, so this will also affect the way we learn things, right? Because we have different goals now. See, so what I want to argue is that it's not the absolute truth, okay? It's not, it probably is patterns, but what are patterns, right? And then what is it really concrete things that we care about in mathematics, okay? So I guess what I want to say is basically, I think mathematics, at least the focus of it now, is relative truth, okay? Relationships between things, okay? Maybe instead of concrete things, you have like abstract things, yeah? And what is a pattern anyway? A pattern is really just a ton of ton of numbers, for example, with a simple relationship, right? So a pattern really is just an example of a relationship. Yeah? And if you think about the absolute truth, what are the absolute truth? They're the axioms, right? You have the axioms and you deduce things from the axioms. Okay? But those axioms cannot be deduced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those axioms are just assumed.
Yeah.
Right? So actually what we're doing is we're proving a relative truth relative to the axioms.
Which is kind of basically an absolute truth. Right?
If you think the axioms are true, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But you don't have any means to actually determine that they're true.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the mathematics is relating the truths together, whereas whether all those things are true or not is more of like a game of philosophy or something.
Yeah.
Okay? And then there's this idea where basically talking about concrete things and abstract things, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So concrete things, I guess it's like sets, right?
Yeah.
And abstract things, it's sort of like functions between sets, yeah? But that's not, I don't think that is like more of an illusion to me. It's sort of like, what level of abstractness are you comfortable with? That's kind of like it's definitely a limit on your intelligence more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So the focus on concrete things is, I think, just mainly because we tend to be dumb, yeah, and we need to like have some solid examples of stuff. Whereas the abstract things could be just as real in the conceptual world, right? And maybe the next level of that would be to think of the abstract things, the relationships, as the concrete things. And you can look at for the relationships between the relationships, okay? And something that kind of highlights this a little bit is this idea of a category, okay? And that's something I want to maybe get into at some point, because it takes the emphasis away from just the sets it includes with the sets the functions, okay? So it's not just objects, okay? But it's also together with what's called morphisms, or the relations between them, okay? Okay, so this is something that may help us in understanding these things. Okay, and this is a very simple example that I think I've had for a while, but I never really put it in this context. So it's like, you know, if you're looking for three variables, right, x, y, and z, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can reduce the problem to looking just for two variables, two unknowns, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. But naively, how would you do that? Okay, naively, you'd think that you'd have to find z, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you find z, then you just have to find x and y, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's probably the strongest version of what you could do, right? You don't actually have to find the numerical value of z, right? You just have to relate z to x and y, yeah?
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example that also illustrates this idea, right? So maths is about relationships. It's not necessarily about objects. Okay. Another way to highlight, for example, like, you know, if you're talking about like, let's for example, a person called Kavan. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone were to tell me, explain to me what Kavan was as an object, okay,
Mhm.
he could tell me like Kavan's student ID,
Yes.
right? His date of birth.
Mhm.
He could tell me all the facts that completely determine who Kavan is and summarize him as a person, right?
Mhm.
But I would not understand what any of those things meant, you know?
Yeah.
The only time I would understand what those things meant would be like, oh, Kavan's your student, or Kavan's your classmate, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's the relationship between you and Kavan that
Yeah.
you take to mean that you understood
Yeah.
what that object is, yeah?
Mhm.
And it replaced all those other things, yeah? So, so this is something that should guide us in how we go, okay?